portion of the news brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
Government has released a draft copy of the Freedom of Information legislation. They did that yesterday. The long-awaited bill was being reviewed to ensure that the proper support mechanism was in place. Janae Noel Ferguson takes a closer look tonight at the bill.
The new Freedom of Information Act, when passed, will replace and repeal the old act passed in 2012 under the former administration but was never enacted. There are some sweeping changes, as the new bill no longer gives the minister responsible veto power over the disclosure of information, and it also sets the framework for an independent information commissioner. And although the primary objective of the bill is to give further effect to certain fundamental principles underlying the system of constitutional democracy, namely government accountability, transparency, and public participation in national decision-making by granting the public right to access of records, the act, however, does not apply to the judicial functions of a court, the Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Forces, the Immigration and Customs Department, or the Financial Intelligence Unit that's in relation to their strategic or operational intelligence gathering activities. Now, during his communication in the House of Assembly last week, Minister of Education Jerome Fitzgerald laid out some of the perimeters of the new bill.
Firstly, expanding the right of access of information to bodies with nexus to the Bahamas. Secondly, expanding the class of accessible documents to include certain policy documents. Thirdly, narrowing the class of documents that are exempt from disclosure. And fourthly, recommendation for a standalone whistleblowing legislation and also for the review of the Official Secrecies Act. The government acknowledges that the access to information is a fundamental human right and an essential condition for all democratic.
Now, the whistleblower section of the Act stipulates that no person may be subject to any legal, administrative, or employment-related sanction, regardless of any breach of a legal or employment-related obligation for releasing information on wrongdoing or that which could disclose a serious threat to health, safety, or the environment, as long as he is in good faith. Fitzgerald has also indicated that the act will not be tabled until they have gathered information from the public, including the press. Now, the Attorney General's office will be responsible for hosting a number of town meetings to seek the public's input on the new bill. Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
26 teachers at the Eva Hilton Primary School, formerly Oaksfield Primary, were honored today for their contributions to nation building. In a show of appreciation, Principal Ms. Gray made public her personal expressions of gratitude.
Here at Eva Hilton, they're doing an excellent job. When we look at the work that teachers put in to the system, into education, to get our children moved from point A to point B, it's not about the monies, because in reality, the monies cannot pay for what they're doing. I can speak to the dedication, the hard work, and even in terms of Eva Hilton now, for years the legacy has been one of excellence. I can boast at this time, taking in consideration the last year's grade level assessment, we would have obtained about, between grade 3 and 6, about 196 A's, 235 B's, and 335 C's. So for that is an encouragement to me. And wherever we will have maybe like challenges, we can go and dig deep in terms of finding solution.
The students were also fully involved in the event, with his grade 2 teacher nearby. 6-year-old David Cox did not disappoint in entertaining. The Bahamas Telecommunication Company, or BTC, was also a part of the celebrations, distributing tablets and phone cards to the teachers. In fact, the company used the occasion to launch their newest educational initiative of their I Volunteer program. It recognizes and celebrates excellence among professionals nationwide. The celebration soon turned to business as usual as Eva Hilton as teachers headed back to the classrooms.
This portion of the news was brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
This is your Royal Fidelity Business News. I'm Jimenita Swain. Financial Services Minister Hope Strawn stressed that jurisdictions such as the Bahamas should remain robust amid an ever-changing regulatory environment. She was addressing the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners, or STEP's annual conference. That conference was held in St. Martin earlier this month at the Western Resort. The minister estimates that STEP provides one of the best platforms for the Bahamas to showcase its financial services resources and products to financial planners and intermediaries worldwide. More than 200 delegates from 13 jurisdictions were represented. In other business news, 4 months into the implementation of value-added tax, and officials are again warning that they will be on a vigorous campaign to ensure businesses are VAT compliant. Issues such as VAT pricing, prominent displays of VAT and business license certificates, proper invoices, and receipts are among issues that VAT officers will be monitoring. Officers can be identified by their VAT identification badges, which will bear the name of the wearer, a signature of the acting VAT controller, John Roll, along with a photograph of each officer. And in international business news, 4 passengers of the Amtrak commuter train that derailed in Philadelphia last week filed a federal lawsuit on Monday against the U.S. Rail Service as operations resumed on the heavily traveled Northeast Corridor. The lawsuit filed in Philadelphia cited, quote, serious and disabling, end quote, injuries from the May 12th derailment that killed 8 people and injured more than 200 others. The case appeared to be the first filed by a non-employee of the U.S. Passenger Rail Service. Last week, an Amtrak worker who was riding the train as a passenger filed the first lawsuit citing a brain injury he said he suffered in the crash. That was your Royal Fidelity Business News. I'm Jimenita Swain.
On May 19, 1973, ZNS 3 Radio Bahamas 810 AM was established in Grand Bahama to service the northern Bahamas, including Abaco and Bimini. The then ZNS Chairman Walter Wisdom and General Manager Rusty Bethel sent former manager Kelsey Johnson, now His Excellency, along with radio announcer Reg Smith and engineer Ambrose Smith to set up 810 AM. Johnson became station manager for the Northern Bahamas at that time. Land was donated by the Grand Bahama Port Authority, and the ground floor of the Kipling building in Freeport was leased to accommodate the 5-member staff and the radio studio. In 1972, when the decision was made to establish 810 AM radio, ZNS 1540 AM here in New Providence was not heard in the Northern Bahamas, and management made the call to unite the country with Bahamas news, weather, including hurricane warnings, and then local programming. According to Dr. Johnson, 810 AM started with just a 1,000-watt transmitter.
We were able to get a small trailer, also donated by the Grand Bahama Port Authority, in which we installed that 1,000 transmitter and run a cable from the transmitter to a 75-foot light pole on which we put the antenna at the top. And that's how we commenced broadcasting in the north.
Now, at that point, with independence just 2 months away in 1973, Dr. Johnson recalls 810 AM's importance of broadcasting the independence celebrations to every island in the archipelago.
And I stood and saw that station officially opened in May, on May 19th, 1973. And highlight number 3 was when I was able to stand in that broadcast studio in the Northern Service and listen to whatever was coming out of Nassau, where our independence celebrations were concerned. And what was so great about that, the telephone calls that were coming in from all over the North, congratulating us for the programming that they were receiving.
Grand Bahama now has a staff of 45, which includes ZNS TV Northern Service. ZNS Radio 1540's 79th anniversary is May 26th. It's not something that's talked about very much here. It's the Battle of Nassau. In fact, this battle was significant in the United States of America's efforts to secure its independence from Great Britain. That battle unfolded centuries ago with a lockdown of the Fort Montague. Jimenita Swain tonight tells us that on Monday, that battle was commemorated through the Ministry of Tourism with a reenactment and a leaf ring at Fort Montague.
1776 was a long time ago, but that didn't stop the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, Daughters of the American Revolution, and members of the Antiquities, Monuments, and Museums Corporation from reenacting the Battle of Nassau. Dressed in full regalia in apparel from that period, officials thought it important to commemorate the first amphibious landing of the U.S. Navy during the era that America was seeking to gain its independence from Great Britain. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Harrison Thompson, said during the battle, over 200 men invaded Nassau with one mission in mind: securing 200 barrels of gunpowder.
At that time, British forces had transferred the much-needed firepower to Nassau in the hopes of keeping it out of the rebels' hands. So Nassau was playing an integral role for them. They thought that they could hide the powder here, but America found out, and that's what happened. Without the bloodless, peaceful battle for Nassau, the Americans would not have the tools they needed to capture their independence. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment in time has left a mark on history that cannot be forgotten.
Their mission was successful with no lives lost. President General for the Sons of the American Revolution, Lindsey Brock, thought the Bahamas was most fitting for the commemoration.
We have had a wonderful time, and being here with this celebration that we had today, I would have never dreamed when I was talking about coming to commemorate the first amphibious landing of the United States Marines in 1777, that we would receive such a warm welcome.
Regional Security Officer with the American Embassy, David Hazarian, also reflected on the significance of the event.
We applaud you as you recognize these great stories of patriotism, courage, and sacrifice, and celebrate with you as we work to preserve our great American history, not only ours, but assist with the Bahamian history as well.
Medals were bestowed and gifts were exchanged between both countries. Officers of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force pop band performed and danced with two ladies of the Daughters of the Revolution. A wreath was also laid at Fort Montague to mark the battle, but all would not be completed without the symbolic firing of a cannon, all a part of the remembrance activities. Jimenita Swain, ZNS Network News.
Anglican church women are better acquainted with the 4 gender equality bills today after members of the Constitutional Commission met with a group of ladies from across the Bahamas and Eleuthera on Monday night. Cleopatra Murphy got the ladies' perspective on the bills, and one in particular says her own country is going through a very similar reform process.
With Barbados, like the Bahamas, undergoing constitutional reform to expand women's abilities to pass citizenship onto their families, Barbadian Jennifer Maynard believes the Bahamas is taking the right steps to address inequality through the planned gender equality referendum. Barbados, like the Bahamas, is one of 27 countries that limits a woman's ability to pass on citizenship and among the last in the region. Maynard, who attended as members of the Constitutional Commission, addressed the Anglican Church Women's Diocesan Monday, says the issue impacts more than women.
It's about the rights of families. And the family is not just about a woman or our rights and our needs. It is about the rights of our men as well. Our sons, who will become the fathers of the future. Our daughters.
The 4 gender equality bills are intended to promote equality and eliminate discrimination based on sex. Some of the bills have been controversial, but educator Junan Lewis says it is evident inequality exists, and those must be addressed for the benefit of future generations.
This is the big world we live in, and a lot of our students go off to school, they get married to foreigners, or foreigners come in and get married, and I think we should all be equal, whether we're living here or abroad, because we want our children to be equal, you know? So the acceptance in our own country is important, whether you're a man or a woman.
Yvette Barr echoed a similar sentiment, noting that it is important for the issues to be addressed, especially when it impacts children's nationality.
Right now we're seeing so much mixed nationalities, our kids, and so much mixed marriages. Our kids need to know exactly where they stand and have their Bahamian citizenship.
As the country awaits the yet-to-be-announced date for the gender equality referendum, Barr says the forum was timely and informative. Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.